So a bit of good news to start out your weekend. Well, sort of good news anyways. It was announced today, there was a big announcement by the officials of Orlando City Soccer. A big announcement that, goes in line with what Bud and I have been saying for a while, that we think it should be this way. Tom Benson, can you get that audio ready? Let's play.
Sure.
Let's play that announcement by the league's club majority owner.
I'm very happy to announce for you today that from now we are very focused on building a new stadium with between 25,000 and 28,000 seats. That's going to be our new house. Another thing that I would like to announce today is that we will fund this project 100% privately. And
yeah, that's right. I actually kind of in disbelief. This is the way it should be. But Orlando City Soccer is going to build a bigger stadium up to 28,000, up from like 18,000, what they wanted before. And they're going to fund it privately. In fact, they're going to pay back anything the city and the counties have already paid. It was beyond reason that the city was going to pay for that anyways. And by the way, you're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, which is every Friday night here, 8 p.m. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of the Yaffee generation, the voice of the millennial generation. And I'm joined by producer Tom Benson. It's Friday night. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing fine. And, the thought just struck my mind that this probably would not have been possible had it not been for the fact that there's been such a fantastic turnout for the games at the Citrus Bowl.
And they acknowledged that.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, they acknowledged that. And that was kind of Bud's point. By the way, Beyond Reason is brought to you by Doc Streetside Grill, 1315 West Orange Avenue, your prescription for fun times. Yes, Bud has been talking about that forever, that soccer has been a lot more popular in Orlando than anybody thought. So just keep it in the Citrus Bowl because there's too many fans. The new soccer stadium would be too small. And that's what's happening. You're right. The fan base being so big is why they said we have to build a bigger stadium. But they knew they weren't going to get the funding. They're already having trouble getting the funding because the legislature has been gridlocked, and they haven't been able to get any of the federal funding. And since soccer's so popular, I guess they were able to get some private funding, which, more power to them, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not going to make me want to go. I'm not going to lie, but that's the way it should be. If they're a business, they're a private business, it's not in my best interest as a taxpayer to put my money towards funding a soccer stadium. But if they're a business, they want to grow, they feel like it's going to be successful, then they should get private money and fund it on their own. Now, I had said before that the soccer stadium is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest waste of money in Orlando history. But it looks like I might be wrong just because the Orlando City and the local counties are not going to pay for it. So we're not going to waste our money because we're not going to pay for it. Now, I still think it might be kind of a waste of money because there's a perfectly good Citrus Bowl. Brand new, redone, right there. I don't really understand the point of building a new stadium, but they're adamant, and I guess maybe Major League Soccer is adamant that they should just have their own stadium, and it's a big thing. Now, soccer is really popular right now, and I think part of it is because it's new. They've had a great marketing campaign, and, people just want an excuse to party. It's just an excuse to do something fun in Orlando and have a good time and party. That's a big part of it. Now, when the Orlando Magic first started, back in the 80s, I think they sold out a lot. It was hugely popular.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that way now.
But keep in mind also with a private stadium now, the people who, the governing body of the soccer league or whoever, will actually be managing the thing will be able to go into competition with the city for concerts, outdoor concerts.
Oh, yeah. That's
they'll make money there.
Yeah, they'll make money. There's definitely opportunities for them to make money, especially in the beginning. I just wonder, we've all been saying, oh, soccer's so popular, need a bigger stadium. There's still a part of me that wonders if it's going to stay that way. Because it's new. Of course it's popular, but 5-10 years down the road, is it going to be as popular in Orlando, which is not a huge sports town? Well, it's yet to be seen. We have a lot of minorities that like soccer. A lot of young people grew up playing soccer, so now they want to watch it. I'm not sure why I can't do it. I can't do it. But yeah, so we'll see what the future holds. But this is what government is supposed to be. By the way, the phone numbers to call in 407-674-1025, toll free 855-545-1025 if you want to comment on this. If you think it's good news, or if you think, hey, why don't they just play in the Citrus Bowl? Which would make a lot of sense to me. Now, the announcement has come that I'm not sure where all the private funding is coming from, but the announcement is it's going to be seating 25,000 to 28,000. And I have a lot of friends on my social media and everything that are really big on soccer in Orlando. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty popular thing. I don't know. We'll see. But some good news, privately funded. If only now we could have a bunch of other things in the city go this route as well and be privately funded instead of wanting to constantly get from the government.
Two more thoughts on this. The soccer-sized stadium of 25,000 to 28,000 versus the Citrus Bowl might be because they're thinking there's going to be waning interest.
Maybe.
In the future.
I think that might be part of it, but I think it's about money.
The other fact is supply and demand. You limit the seating potential, you can drive up your prices for tickets.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's been talk about that as well. I think a lot of it is just room and money. They don't have the money to build another Citrus Bowl type stadium. But I think you're right. It probably is smarter to make it a little bit smaller than the Citrus Bowl. It's interesting, though, when you talk about these cities and wanting money from the government, and the city was trying to get money from the federal government to build it. This is another thing that I think is beyond reason. How our cities and our local governments in this country have now are so dependent on getting money from the federal government. I found an article today where I was talking about how a bunch of mayors in the country, of big cities in the country, are really upset at Washington and really upset at the Obama administration because they're not getting anything done. And we need this stuff done. We need infrastructure and roads and spending so we can make our cities better. And I'm thinking, why don't you do it yourselves? Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Instead of constantly begging from the federal government to get money, why don't you get it done yourself? But no, they want to spend money on stuff they shouldn't be spending on and then ask the federal government for money for roads and stuff that they should have been spending on in the first place. So that was a very interesting point when this whole soccer thing came up. It's amazing how the federal government has just got its branches and its fingers in every single part of this country now, which is totally the opposite of what we were founded on. 407-674-1025. Speaking of another local government issue, I want to get into this because it's becoming a big issue in Washington. Because right now we're up for Congress to reauthorize the No Child Left Behind Act, the big thing that was pushed by President Bush to help education in this country. And we have some, like Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Mike Lee in Congress, who are promoting school choice. And Ted Cruz has had some interesting comments on this in the past. I want to get your take on this. What is the solution for education in this country? Because that's really, there's a lot of people in my generation, the millennial, the Yaffee generation now, who have very young kids starting school, about to get in the public education system, and they have to deal with stuff like Common Core and just a total corrupt unions and total mess in the public school system. So what's the solution? Is school choice, the freedom to choose what public school you want to go to, or voucher programs to be able to go to private school, is that the solution? I'll get my take on that. You'll get my take on that in the next segment. 407-674-1025. 1025, toll free 855-545-1025. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio here on News Radio 1025 WFLA and BeyondReasonRadio.com.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Beyond Reason Radio, BeyondReasonRadio.com. Plenty of places to find the show. We're here every Friday night at 8 p.m. And if you like the show and you like hearing a young, fresh voice like myself, well, share with your friends. I need you to share with your friends. Tell your friends. They want to hear a voice of reason that sifts through everything that is beyond reason. Well, you got to let them know. Michael Yaffee does that every Friday night, and you can get the podcast anytime. We talk faith, culture, and politics. And an issue that addresses the culture and politics of this country, of course, is school choice. Now, when I talk about school choice, it's something that was really brought to the forefront many years ago by Milton Friedman, the economics professor, the big economist, big famous Nobel Prize winning economist. And the idea is our public school systems are getting bad, they're worse, they're bad, they're getting worse. And if we could just give parents the ability to choose what public school they want to go to, or give them vouchers that students in inner cities can have a chance to use that money and go to a private school instead, which might actually save the government money in the long run, and they can get a better education. What it would do is create competition in the public school system, forcing the public schools to do better, and giving those who don't have as much opportunity in the public school they're at to go to a better school and to have better opportunity. Well, I have to say that sounds a lot better than the No Child Left Behind Act. The No Child Left Behind from Testing Act, as I think I'd like to call it. And the reason I bring this up is because No Child Left Behind Act is being brought for reauthorization to Congress. And Senator Ted Cruz, who's running for president, of course, wants to get his name out there, and Senator Mike Lee are putting forth a bill to expand school choice and school vouchers in this country. The bill is called the Enhancing Educational Opportunities for All Student Act. It was introduced in the Senate in January, and it's getting a lot of attention. And when I was looking up some information on this, I found some comments from Ted Cruz. He's been promoting this a lot, and there's some audio I found from last year, actually, where he said something that caught my attention on this whole issue of education in this country. This is what he said.
In my view, school choice is the civil rights issue of the 21st century. Every child in America deserves a fair chance at a quality education.
He says that school choice is the civil rights issue of the century. A civil rights issue. And I think his main point is that it's mostly minorities in poor communities and inner cities that would benefit the most from school choice. Because instead of going to these bad inner city schools, they would have the opportunity to go to a better school. But do you agree with Ted Cruz that it's a civil rights issue? 407-674-1025 if you agree or disagree. Now, Obama has been totally against school choice because he's all about fairness. Well, that might give some better opportunity, but it wouldn't give everybody better opportunity, and we have to even the playing field, even if that means not giving the opportunity for some. Remember, it's all about bringing others down instead of lifting some up. That's what Obama and leftists do. So but even liberal columnist, commentator Juan Williams has bashed Obama and has been totally for school choice because he understands the opportunity that it gives minority communities in this country. But when I heard the comments, civil rights issue, I don't think I can go that far. I think it's a good thing. I think it would help public education in this country. I think it would give the competition it needs to really put us in the right direction. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done with education in this country to make it better. Mostly the curriculum. Mostly we need to localize it and give the local governments the power and the local school districts the power to help their own schools. They don't even have the power anymore. We have Common Core getting in there dictating everything you do, the No Child Left Behind Act dictating everything you do. So you elect a school district official and they don't have any power to do anything. So it makes you not even interested in getting involved in your schools. But when he talks about it's a civil rights issue, that's where I just don't buy that. Because that means that everybody, for one, this is going to sound very radical to some people. Education is not a right. It's not a right. I'm sorry to say that, but it's really a privilege that our society gives. It's not a human right to be educated. Now, you have the right to educate, you have the right to learn, you have the right to speak, but the right to be educated. So once you start saying, well, them being able to go to a different public school is a right, it's not. You have the right to go to a private school if you want, or you have a right to go to that public school that's there. But the government offering you education is not a right. So being able to choose what public school to go to isn't necessarily a right. That's what I'm getting at. When you say it's a civil right, where does that end? Because if it's a civil rights issue, does that also expand to college? Where now any public university has to be the same price? Because it's a civil rights issue. I bet you I bet you it costs a lot more to go to Harvard than to say to go to UCF. So is it a civil rights issue? Should everybody be able to go to Harvard instead of UCF to get a better education at Harvard than UCF? Well, that seems ridiculous. No, you have to be accepted to Harvard. Now, actually, I'm not sure. Is Harvard I don't know if Harvard's a public university.
No.
Yeah, it's not. But I mean, that's just an example I throw out there. There's some public universities that are much better, much harder to get into, much more expensive than maybe like UCF or some other schools. So once you start this precedent that you have the right to any education that you want, and it should be provided for you, that precedent can expand to something that I just don't agree with. Because now you could have a black person in an inner city who maybe is accepted to UCF, maybe can afford going to SSC, Seminole State College, instead of UCF. But now he says, this is a civil rights issue. I don't have the ability to go to some of these bigger schools, but I should. I should be accepted, and it should be paid for because it's my civil right to be educated anywhere. And I just don't agree with that. We've come to the point in this country where we think the government educating us is a right, that it's the government's role to do that. And I'm not bashing all public education. I don't want to get rid of all public education. It's too much institutionalized in this country to be able to do that. But when you talk about the right to choose, you already have the right to choose. You can homeschool. You can go to a private school. You can go to, I don't know, one of those, you can go to a Christian type school, magnet school, charter school, and then you have public school. Public school is a privilege that is provided by your local government, and you can use it or you don't have to. And they're paying for it. Now, that being said, I'm just getting I'm critical of his wording, I guess. I'm critical of the precedent that could send when you start calling things like that a right. We already have that issue with healthcare, where now being provided healthcare is a right. It's never been a right to provide healthcare. It's just not. You have the right. You have the right to exist. You have the right to life. You have the right to provide healthcare to others if you want. You have the right to go pay for healthcare. But when you start saying all these things are right, then then there's an expectation that it's the government's role to provide it. And it's not. It's not the government's role. And I always talk about this stuff because we keep expanding what the government's role is in this society, and it goes on. And when you have a conservative who says it's a civil rights issue, now the reason he's saying that is because he wants to get elected, because he wants to be a Republican that can actually get more African American votes, get more inner city votes. He's doing it for political reasons. But here in the show, I don't have to do that. I'm just going to say what I believe, and I'm just going to say it's the truth.
So you're saying he's talking code?
Yes.
Ah.
I mean, I like Ted Cruz. I might actually vote for him. And I agree that school choice is a good thing because it gives accountability to public schools. And if we want a better education, that's something that is needed, accountability. The competition of it would give accountability. But I'm not going to go as far as saying it's a right, because it's frankly not. I'm sorry. I would love to be able to totally privatize schools in this country. It's not going to happen. So a step in the right direction is, for one, localizing it, and two, school choice. Coming up, it's very interesting. Something that I, of course, predicted. In fact, I think I said this before I hear the national hosts say this now. I swear they listen to the show, because I'll say something and then I'll hear them say it. I told you that the riots in Baltimore and the ginning up of race issues against police in this country has a lot more to do with politics and the federal government wanting to expand than you might think. Well, I'm being proven right, and you'll find out. This is Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 102.5 WFLA, BeyondReasonRadio.com.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Just search Bud Henninger or stream the show live by searching News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
Yes, welcome back to hearing the voice of reason as we talk faith, culture, and politics and sift through everything in the news that is beyond reason. Beyond reason. By the way, I'm about to get into how the federal government is deciding to get involved in local police departments. And this all started, of course, we had the Freddie Gray situation in Baltimore, and then Al Sharpton, which I pointed out on this show, was talking about how he believes the federal government should take over local police departments. And I talked about, when I found that, I said, aha, there it is. There is the political motivation to promote all this racial division between blacks and police. And that is to get the federal government more involved in local police, to start the federal government to start taking over local police. So I predicted that, and of course I said that. All of a sudden I hear all the national hosts saying it. And I heard it was on Glenn Beck's show and other shows, and I'm like, are they listening? Are they listening to Beyond Reason? Okay, I'm not arrogant enough to believe that they're listening to Beyond Reason, but I'm just saying, sometimes I say stuff and I swear I hear it the next week on some of these national shows.
Great minds, same circle, Yeah.
Great minds, same circle.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, but I say it first. So if you want to hear it said first, you got to listen to this show, because I'll find it and I'll point it out. And by the way, something that is really funny, I just had to talk about the whole Baltimore thing. Apparently, Marilyn Mosby, who is the state attorney that's getting all involved in prosecuting the police officers in Baltimore, she has a little experience in front of a judge. Obviously, she does because she's an attorney. But who knew that in 2011, she was on Judge Judy?
Was it 2011 or 2001? I think it
the
goes...
article I said 2011. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2001 because
she looks a lot younger.
Oh, it is 2001. It says 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it might have been a misprint because I read somewhere it was 2011.
Yeah.
But I thought, I was like, wow, she's really aged a lot in 4 years. So you're right. She does look a lot younger. So 2001, she decides to go in front of Judge Judy, and she argues a case about a tenant or something. I didn't watch the whole thing. Some guy who totally messed up her apartment, and she won. She won the case. So that was the beginning of a bright career for Marilyn Mosby, winning a case as she was in school.
There's money in winning.
And Judge Judy. Yeah. Do you think she uses that like on her resume? When she's like applying for all these attorney jobs that she was getting up, she has like a resume tape and say, "Look, not only can I win your case, but I won in front of Judge Judy. That's not easy. In front of television, and I was young. Think how good I am now." Arguing that case. So I bet you she has that on her resume. Yeah, she has her school and everything else, but she has that she won a case in front of Judge Judy. Interesting. Can you believe that show is still on? How long has that show been on?
It's been on a number of years. Not only that, but it's number one.
Really?
It gets terrific ratings, yeah.
Yeah, out of all the judge shows, it's still the best, I think.
Now, there's a new one coming out. It's called Hot Box. It's been out for 1 year now.
What's that about?
The concept is there's a judge and two former state Supreme Court justices who deliberate the case among themselves, which is, I guess, kind of interesting. And then there's another one coming out. It's called Paternity Court.
Oh, dear.
You can just imagine how low that's going to go.
It's like a Maori in court. Basically, it's what that sounds like. All right, so back to the issue of what I predicted. I told you that this has a lot to do with the federal government, the Justice Department, getting involved in local police departments. Well, that's happening. That's already happened. And it happened the past week in Cleveland. Apparently, Cleveland's had a lot of issues, and they got national attention because there was two people that were in a high-speed car chase. The cops finally stopped them, and they shot into the car and killed them when it seemed like they didn't have to do that. They tried to prosecute one of the cops for doing that because he jumped on the hood and did it, but there wasn't enough evidence to show that because so many cops fired in, there were so many gunshots. There wasn't enough evidence to show that his was the one that killed them. So he got away, and it started protests. And, of course, the Justice Department got involved. And apparently, it's the strongest they have got involved in a local police department in a long time. This isn't necessarily the first time this has happened. They got involved in New Orleans a couple of years ago for something that's interesting. But I don't think any of this would have happened if it weren't for all these protests. And I think the Obama administration and those in the Justice Department, of course, Eric Holder's there. Now they have someone new. I forget her name.
Last name is Lynch.
Yeah, Loretta Lynch. Thank you. Thank you, producer. That's why you're producer. All right, to remind me of names. That's like my worst. That's my biggest weakness. Anyways, but I'm sure they're totally happy. And I think this is the beginning. I don't think this is the end of this. You're going to start seeing the Justice Department start investigating a lot more local police departments. Every time there's a little issue, they're going to go in and they're going to have a settlement. This was a settlement done with the Justice Department where, they basically, instead of prosecuting the people, they said, here's all these book of new rules that you have to follow to run your police department. So you're going to have these local police departments scared to do a lot of things because they don't want the Justice Department raining down on them.
Well, they say that's one of the reasons the Baltimore police have not exactly stand down, but crime has gone up tremendously in Baltimore. There were like 29 shootings last weekend and like 7 or 9 deaths. I can't remember the exact number in Baltimore. And that's because the police are afraid to go out in the streets.
And we played on Bud Show earlier this week. There was a cop that went on CNN, Baltimore police officer, and he had to hide his identity, which is amazing that a cop has to do that. And he admitted, he says the police are holding back. They are. Of course they are. And we had a caller on that said they shouldn't do that. If they're doing that, they should be fired. This is outrageous, but this is all because of police brutality. And I've talked about on the show how that's more perception than reality. But what do you expect? You're an individual trying to make a livelihood, trying to keep yourself safe, and you're going to be afraid to do anything because you don't want to go to jail for the rest of your life. So, of course, I don't blame the cops in this instance. Of course, this is going to be racist now. You realize that. Before, it was racist that the cops arrested all these people. But now that the cops are holding back, that's now racist.
Especially with crime going up in the black neighborhoods as opposed to white neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so now that the police are holding back, now that they're racist because they're holding back. Before they were racist because they were actually arresting people. Now they're racist because they're holding back. I don't know what they're going to do. You're just going to have people quit policing, which then we'll have a crisis of not enough police in this country, and then that's going to get the federal government even more involved in local police. I just came up with that, but that's another prediction, and now you're going to hear all the national hosts say what I just said. You watch. That's the next thing. We're going to have people afraid to go in the police force because of all this controversy, and then there's going to be a crisis of not enough police, and then the federal government will want to get involved. But I bring this up because this is happening in Cleveland. And the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association, a union, their president, said Wednesday he does not like this reform because it's 105 pages of reforms in the Cleveland Police Department that's going against their police from the Justice Department. He says it's going to get somebody killed, which it probably is. There's going to be a time when someone isn't going to want to do that paperwork. So he's going to keep that gun in its holster. It's already happening in Baltimore now. It's only been a few weeks and it's already happening. And it's just going to grow. It's unbelievable. So the unions are trying to fight back. He said, I think he listens to this show too, because he said what I said. He said, this is a political agenda. This has nothing to do with the actions of the men and women of the Cleveland Police Department. It's a political agenda. That is exactly what I said. See, there's all kinds of people listening to this show, Tom Benson. You think no. By the way, 407-674-1025, if you think that's what's going on here. If you think the Justice Department is going to start expanding into local police departments, do you think the Justice Department is overreaching here? Do you think this is political, or did they need to do this because of the corruption? Do they need to do this to rein in police brutality in this country? I don't know. Every time I see a cop down the street, I'm like, oh my gosh, he might hurt me because he's a cop. Oh, please. So, but the union is starting to fight back, and this is going to expand and it's going to grow, and this was all predicted right here on Beyond Reason Radio. In the next segment, this is going to be my Beyond Reason flabbergasted thing of the day. You won't believe what is happening. 407-674-1025. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, beyondreasonradio.com, News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Yes, hear the voice of reason anytime. The best way to do that is go to beyondreasonradio.com. This is your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of the millennial generation, the voice of reason. I also produce Bud Henninger Live, which is on this station, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. So you can hear Yaffee all over the place on this station. I actually produce the show that comes on after this, Todd Long Show, American Taxpayer Revolution. I produce that show as well, and I talk on that show. So I'm all over this station. You can't ignore the Yaffee, the pro Yaffee movement, as Bud calls it. The pro Yaffee movement. I'm trying to grow it. You can help the pro Yaffee movement by going to my website, and you can also like our Facebook page. Let's go to facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio, and you can follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. And I'm almost up to 600 followers, so it's pretty good, but not good enough. I need some more, so let's get to that. So this is what I'm call every now and then the Beyond Reason Michael Yaffee totally flabbergasted segment. Things out there that really are kind of beyond reason. And what is beyond reason is that the Obama administration ever made a trade for Bergdahl, for Bo Bergdahl, who was the deserter, who the Pentagon is now saying he's a deserter. And we traded some Taliban leaders for that. Well, this is from Breitbart.com. Taliban leaders traded for Bergdahl might be released back into the battlefield. Oh, okay, well, that's good.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. 5 senior Taliban leaders released last year from the U.S. prison at Gitmo, Cuba, in exchange for Bergdahl, could move freely around the world next week as their 1-year travel ban expires. So I'm sure they're just gonna travel to Rome and see the Colosseum or something.
Go to the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, just go to the. They're just gonna just be tourists now. They're gonna go to the pyramids. I'm sure that's what they're gonna be up to. There's no possibility that they're gonna go back in the battlefield. That they're going to, I don't know, maybe want to plan to attack Americans. Maybe plan to help ISIS. Who knows? They're going to help the Taliban. They're going to attack military in Afghanistan. That is exactly what's going to happen. And why? Why did we release him? For a deserter. Unbelievable. That's one of my flabbergasted segments of the day. The next flabbergasted segment, I have a couple of them here. This is very interesting. You might find this interesting, Tom Benson.
Mm-hmm.
There is a guy. Actually, he's from Baltimore. Speaking of Baltimore, we talked a lot about Baltimore. There is a guy in Baltimore who wants to travel to Iraq, travel to the Middle East, and create a Christian army to fight ISIS. He's going to go over there, and the article is kind of funny because even though it's from the liberal left, Mother Jones, he says, this guy from Baltimore is raising a Christian army to fight ISIS. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But think about this. Well, first, a little information on this. In late February, a Baltimore-born self-proclaimed freedom fighter named Matthew Van Dyke beamed into Greta Van Sustren's Fox News show, and he talked about how he wants to raise and train a Christian army to fight ISIS, and that he had formed a company called Sons of Liberty International to provide free military consulting and training to local forces fighting terrorists and oppressive regimes. Because, ISIS is basically taking over the Middle East or taking over Iraq. And it's very interesting because I thought about this and I'm like, why is he having to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe because that's where our government is not doing anything. Our military is not doing anything. We were supposed to train the Iraqis and we did. And we left too soon, obviously. So we left too soon. And now we have someone like this guy who sees the slaughter of innocent Christians all over the Middle East, slaughter of innocent people, the rise of what is becoming our number one enemy in ISIS, taking over the Middle East. And he knows, well, this isn't going to be good for the United States. The Obama administration doesn't care. They're whatever. Just take over the Middle East. That's fine. That's fine. If we leave them alone, see, Tom mentioned, if we leave them alone, they're going to like us. And they're not going to ever attack us again, right?
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. See, Tom Benson's on board with Obama's plan over there. That's the theory. If we just leave them alone.
Well, the downside to a Christian army is, first of all, it then makes the whole conflict over there on religious grounds. But when you
good point. Even though ISIS has kind of already done that.
Right, because it's the Sunni against the Shiite, and that's already a religious conflict. They, hate each other.
Yeah, exactly. So he's encouraging the religious conflict. It's very interesting. I don't think anything's really going to happen with this. They don't have enough power. All we have to do, like with the city of Ramadi, we just send a couple of our F-22s over there, a couple of our B-52 bombers, and level the place. How about that?
Well, supposedly, last week we talked a little bit about the American government and the Iraqi government are pointing fingers at each other for the fall of Ramadi.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things the Iraqi government said is the fact that the United States did not, its warplanes were not available to, help them out.
Of course not. Yeah, and that was actually admitted this week. You're right. The Obama administration said the planes weren't available. We can't help them out. We what we do is we have 6 targeted strikes, a day throughout the day, and that's it. And ISIS just rolls on and takes over the Middle East. And, there was talk this week on the morning show. There's been talk this week about who is to blame for all this. Because Rand Paul came out and he blamed GOP hawks. Because the GOP hawks, like McCain and Lindsey Graham, were for arming the Syrian rebels, were for arming the Libyan rebels, We're for going into Iraq, and this is what has caused ISIS. And there's, of course, the other side, which is more my side. It's the fault of the Obama administration because they left too early, which obviously we left too early. Even Bob Woodward came out this week and said we could have kept a residual force. We have one in South Korea, for crying out loud, from that war, but we couldn't keep a residual force in Iraq.
Well, part of the problem is we're not good at picking out our friends.
That's true.
You know, we picked out the rebels in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets, and they turned out to be the Taliban. You know,
well, partly true. Yeah, we kind of supported some rebels over there, and then when it was all over, we left, and we didn't help them against the Taliban.
And they had the weapons.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, and I actually partly agree with Rand Paul that it was stupid to arm the Syrian rebels. It was stupid to arm the Libyan rebels. It was stupid to get involved in all that. But here's my point. At this point, I don't care who's to blame. The point is, I just can't see, and some people disagree with me on this. They think we should just get out of the Middle East, forget it exists, drill for oil and oil, which I'm all for, and just let them take care of it themselves. But I just can't come to the place where I think it's a good idea to just let ISIS take over the Middle East and to believe that that's not going to affect us here. I just can't come to that conclusion.
The scary thing for me is we know who we have been arming and we haven't been well. The scary part is who are we arming that we don't know about?
That's true. Well, yeah, you have to look at the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's definitely some shady dealings. The whole Benghazi thing probably pointed that out. But I don't know, because what happens if we let ISIS go alone? Well, they'll take over Iraq. They'll take over Syria. They'll take over Libya, Tunisia. Then they'll head into Egypt. Then they'll try to get into Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. Iran's going to start a big civil war with them. You have ISIS grown into a whole caliphate state. They're going to want to get more power. They're going to want to get nuclear weapons. By the way, they'll get into Pakistan. And you're going to have a whole radical Islamic state, bigger or as big as Iran, crazier than Iran. And it's going to affect us. They're not going to leave us alone. Whether we were at fault for creating them or not, they're not going to leave us alone. I'm sorry. All right. The last Beyond Reason flabbergasted segment before we go at the end of the show today. You like ice cream, Tom Benson?
Love it.
Would you eat a climate change awareness sundae at Ben & Jerry's?
I do not partake of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Don't like their politics.
Why not? Why not? Yeah, I know, right? It's become a political thing. It even comes with melting ice caps that they put on the ice cream to show the awareness of climate change. So when you eat your ice cream that's cold and you see it melting, you're going to be like, that's the planet. That's the planet that's melting. And I can't even eat this ice cream anymore because eating it and creating it is probably causing the destruction of the planet. I know. I actually kind of like Ben & Jerry's, but now it makes me not want to go there, especially for that. I kind of want to see it melt, and I'm going to cheer for it. I'm going to cheer for it as it melts. How about that? Next time I eat Ben & Jerry's, I'm going to be like, come on, melt faster. I know, I'm such a hater. You've been listening to Beyond Reason Radio here on News Radio 102.5, WFLA, BeyondReasonRadio.com. Make sure to go to my website, like the Facebook page, follow me on Twitter. And, of course, the voice of reason will be back next week.
I look inside.